Until 20 years ago, conflict, as we expected it, was characterised by the confrontation between two blocks of classic armed forces, particularly centred in Germany. And we expected that if that conflict occurred, it would be an Armageddon. And the nations prepared for that, and that shaped our armed forces, it shaped the education, the training of our troops, it shaped our whole national economies. All that's gone, and future conflict is highly unlikely to be of that nature. Future conflict, indeed conflict today, because today is the future, is actually on a much broader base. It involves whole degrees of competition between countries based upon economic competition, political competition, use of new tools such as cyber warfare, economic warfare itself, and within that violence still plays a part. But the violence, the warfare, is warfare amongst the people, to use Rupert Smith's phrase. It's for the hearts of the people, and therefore the conflict as it is engaged uses more than purely military kinetic tools.
Certainly conflict remains a human activity between human beings. The advent of new technologies may change that, but there's some enduring aspects of conflict and warfare that will remain the same. It also has changed in that now we see conflict not only being the traditional conflict between states, state-on-state conflict, but also conflict that involve non-state actors, be that terrorist organizations, organized crime, and the like. And now we've even seen so-called hybrid warfare, where a particular organization may actually control a certain part of territory, such as in Lebanon, and be able to conduct warfare from that in a very sophisticated way, using high technology weapons, but not be a state, which further complicates. So we're in a much more complex world in dealing with varieties of conflict. Well, there's this enduring interaction between human beings and the advent of technology.
The future conflict will increasingly take on forms which are non-violent, which means less focus on destructiveness and more focus on achieving the end result. For example, an intelligence war, a cyber war, a media war, a diplomatic offensive. These could be newer and more diverse forms of warfare. And it appears that while the violent aspect of conflict will continue with increasingly lesser importance, the non-violent aspects will gain prominence in the future.
Well, I think first of all it means we have to understand that there is training and there is education. We still need to train people in the skillful application of force. We need to train soldiers on how they operate very sophisticated pieces of equipment, which may take more and more time. But we also have a much more important demand now to educate leaders so that they can adapt very quickly to very, very violent at times, but changing situations and deal with that rapidly. They can assess large amounts of information, and from that information deduce as quickly as possible what are the key items, and from those items make choices and decisions for their organizations to move forward.
The level of individual training will always have to be high, but there is a difference here between training and education. Training is always for the past. It's based on what we did in the past. It's based on what we know. Education is what we need when we deal with the unknown, the future, the uncertain, which is the kind of conflict we have to prepare for. So that I think we have to shift the balance away from training and more towards education, because the conflicts of the future will no longer resemble the conflicts of the past. And we have to prepare people to deal with the unknown, and for that you need education in a greater measure as well as training. So shift on the cursor between education and training, shifts more towards education. Secondly, in future we have to be able to shift people from ideas of management to ideas of leadership, because management is of things that you can control, and leadership is where you can't, where you have to delegate, where you have to use initiative. Thirdly, we have to move people from current thoughts of where they are vis-a-vis risk. At the moment, societies and armed forces are risk averse and they try to avoid risk. Things have to be fail-safe. We have to move to a mentality and to procedures and to mechanisms which make it safe to fail and try again. Because that's what we're going to need if we're going to be able to exploit opportunities. And finally, we have to move away from efficiency and into effectiveness. Efficiency is tying up all your assets and resources in long-term plans, which is fine in stable conditions, but in times of future conflict will be a disaster. We need to free up resources of people, time and money to deal with the unknown. That's effectiveness. It's not efficiency, and the difficulty is going to be applying that principle in a peacetime mentality.
What it really means is that the present learning systems and the present technologies available are not going to match up to the requirements of winning the war of the future. And we need to really rethink and introduce newer processes. Some of the thoughts that I can give you in that regard are: the one, we have to certainly shorten the individual and the collective learning curves. And one of the concepts that we talked about is rapid learning. There are many other concepts and we have to look at them very closely. We have to pick what we like and then go ahead and implement that.
Well, a number of things. First of all, technology on the one hand has made it more difficult because we're training people on more complex pieces of equipment. Therefore, we hope the soldier or new police cadet arrives at a higher level of learning to start with. Second of all, however, we have simulators now that can facilitate that learning. Distance learning, we can do online education, which may provide them education in a just-in-time format that allows them to move forward. So there are various advantages and disadvantages. Finally, of course, technology now provides the leader more and more information. And while that's important so he or she can make good judgments, it may at times also discourage them from making rapid choices as they want more and more information to increase higher and higher probabilities of success. And now, therefore, the good leader has got to be able to make the critical choice: when do I have enough information to make a decision, realizing that there will always be some element of risk.
The internet has actually revolutionized the entire learning process, and it is no longer important to know the right answer, because the right answer is always there on the net. All the detail that you can ever get is always available on the net at the click of a button. So what is more important now is that we have to design the navigational strategies to think in a manner that we get the answers we want from the net, and not so much what the answer is. Therefore, what I call, navigating your way through has become a little more important than arriving at the right answer.
That's perhaps the most difficult thing of all. Firstly, we have to adapt our institutions so that they are capable of continuous change instead of being made obsolete by the pace of change which they can't keep up with. Secondly, we have to adapt ourselves, and that's where we need the ITHIS. The first is versatility, the ability to turn our hand to unknown things, adaptability, to change today's tools to deal with tomorrow's problems, flexibility, and most important of all, humility, the capacity to listen and learn from other nations, peoples, organizations, to realize that we don't have all the answers.
We have to invest in the future, and we have to increasingly look at ideation, innovation. We have to look at leveraging every individual's knowledge, attributes and skills in a manner that we have not done till now. See, what I call the concept of herd learning has to be abandoned, and we have now to go towards individualized learning, where we leverage every individual's capabilities, knowledge and skills to empower that individual for the future and indirectly achieve the communal good in this way.
Well, we fully know that terrorists and other organizations can be very sophisticated in how they use technology. Let me give you one example. We've seen clearly in Afghanistan and Iraq, terrorist organizations using the internet to transfer information on how to improve their ability to create improvised explosive devices. What are the best ways of creating explosives? What's the best way of triggering those? And they use the internet to transfer that information. We certainly realize that at any given moment, many of our security apparatuses, be they again the police, intelligence services, or the military, are under constant cyber attack by organizations or even individuals. Many would argue, for example, the most recent WikiLeaks phenomena is just an example of that. So in some ways we are ahead, in other ways we're behind, and it's a real challenge for us to continually think through how we can improve our systems while at the same time safeguarding ourselves from attacks that may emanate from cybersecurity, from the internet, and elsewhere. Battles will be fought over information and our ability to understand it and use it. You know, historically, military leaders thought about a battle plan by analyzing the mission, the enemy, the terrain, troops available, the weather, etc. And I would argue that information now has risen to that particular level of being of equal significance. So, for example, a strategic leader has got to understand, as he or she is planning an operation, what are the informational implications of that? How will that operation be perceived? Because if you're involved in many societies today where we know full well part of what we want to accomplish is that the society appreciates, or if you will, supports what we are in fact doing. Does it in fact enhance the legitimacy of a government, for example, like in Afghanistan that we're trying to create? And if it does not, even though it might be tactically successful, it could be a strategic failure.
The military has now to shift focus, and when I say this, I mean militaries across the globe and not for any particular country. They have to shift focus to perception dominance, to winning the knowledge warfare of the future. That, it appears to me, it will be the bullseye of future conflict. So I think you have to optimize yourself for knowledge warfare. You have to enable and empower yourself to exercise perception dominance, and you have to build up your capabilities to protect your networks, whether they be military or the commercial or any other networks of your country. You have to insulate them from cyber attacks of the enemy. At the same time, you have to build up a potential to offensively target the adversary's cyber systems. Those combined with two other aspects, that is capability to undertake warfare in outer space and inner space, and use of directed energy weapons to achieve target hits where you want them. These combined will actually give you the future form of warfare.